I want to bring in Fox News contributor and former National Security Council staffer Gillian Turner. Also on the phone with us this hour is Eurasia Group president and foreign policy expert Ian Bremmer. Ian, I go to you first. Just your reaction to the developments in Saint Denis.
Well, the President Hollande has already requested from the French Parliament a 3-month extension of the state of emergency. Part of that is because they still had those that were, they believed, involved directly in bringing about these horrific attacks still at large. But part is because they also understand that there are larger numbers of terrorist cells that in operating in France that they haven't been able to be adequate despite the high levels of surveillance that they've put in place. And they clearly have operational intelligence that more attacks were being planned. So much as this is a breakthrough and this will be seen as a win, I absolutely don't believe that we are out of the woods in terms of the proximate danger that the French government believes exists right now on the ground in their country. And the impact that you're going to see socially, that you're going to see economically, as well as the very significant political chasm that exists right now, both between Muslims living in France, large piece of the population, about 8%, most of which are citizens, as well as between the French opposition looking to take over the presidency themselves and Hollande. This is a radically different environment than the incredible show of unity and the feeling of safety that we experienced in France after the Charlie Hebdo bombings back in January.
But Ian, doesn't that need to happen? Don't you need the posture of this French government and the authorities there is certainly a lot more aggressive in the bombings that have been conducted in the aftermath of the Friday the 13th attack in Syria, and what we're seeing today, just even speaking to the fact that they're conducting this massive operation in a very dense urban area speaks to their aggressiveness.
Sure it does, but I guess what I would say is these larger attacks that we've seen in France, they're by far the most significant that I've ever seen that has not led to an immediate expression of unity. I mean, think about 9/11. After 9/11, the rally around the flag effect to President Bush, both in the United States and outside the U.S., was extraordinary. Same thing was the case after the Charlie Hebdo bombings in attacks back in January. That's not the case at all here. And yes, you're seeing a very aggressive response from Hollande, but nowhere close to what you see called by former President Sarkozy, who has thrown his hat in the ring for the upcoming presidential elections in France. He's suggested that the French government call off the global summit, which is coming in just a few weeks on climate. You're going to have over 100 heads of state visiting, and with delegations staying in hotels all around Paris. Sarkozy implying that Hollande doesn't have the ability to ensure the security of all those leaders coming in. He's also suggested that of the some 11,000 French citizens that are on terrorist watch lists and radical watch lists, that they be given electronic monitoring bracelets and put under house arrest. This is the level of disagreement, political disagreement, and fractiousness that is now being experienced in France in the direct aftermath of these attacks is something that they've just never seen before.
I want to bring Gillian. I want to go to you first. Is this fractiousness necessarily a bad thing? Just your reaction to the pictures and the information we've gotten from this raid in Paris.
A lot is hinging on the successful execution of this operation, not just for the people of France and the people of the EU, but here at home, because really in recent days what we've been hearing about our EU counterparts is that their law enforcement and intelligence communities are overwhelmed, not just by the refugee crisis, but by the data they're analyzing in the aftermath of these attacks. So to see the French come in today with this large-scale operation, to see a successful implementation and perhaps the perpetrator of Friday's attacks apprehended would be very, very significant, I think, globally at this point.
Gillian, I want you and Ian and also Anastasia and Arthur to listen to this. It was something that President Obama said in the debate over allowing refugees here into the United States. And I just want to play that, given some of the details about one of the alleged terror suspects who was killed in Paris. Can we play that, guys?
Apparently they're scared of widows and orphans coming into the United States of America. First they were worried about the press being too tough on them during debates. Now they're worried about 3-year-old orphans. That doesn't sound very tough to me.
Widows and orphans, but Gillian, to this point, the woman who took her own life with a suicide vest, I say woman. There was a female involved, one of the 2 terror suspects who's dead. The other, we don't have many details, but the other reportedly killed by a sniper. But this speaks to what President Obama was dismissing, does it not?
It does, in a sense. Increasingly, we've seen terrorist organizations employ this as a tactic, not just ISIS, Al-Qaeda, other African terrorist organizations. They prey on vulnerable populations. So more and more recruiting child fighters, more and more recruiting mentally ill, and I think as an extension of that, they're preying on women and recruiting them to these organizations because women are more easily able to go under the radar, they're more able easily to penetrate international borders because of profiles that all governments at this point have going about terrorist operatives. Now, I think this doesn't so much promote the idea that Syrian refugees, women included, are more dangerous than people coming from other countries. I think what President Obama was trying to say there is that we can do both. And I actually go against the grain on this. I stand with the president on that issue. I think there's no reason why we can't uphold national security, self-defense, at the same time allow ourselves to continue humanitarian missions that allow refugees to come inside the United States.